Hello viewers and welcome to Reminiscences with Dr. Bello Haliru Mohammed,
Yes.
who is a veterinary doctor by training and who spent some time as a lecturer at Ahmadu Bello University before he went on to hold a string of appointments, first in Sokoto State, the old Sokoto State, I should add, as commissioner, and then in many other governments under the civilian government of Obasanjo, I believe as Minister of Communication, Minister of Defense, and government of Goodluck Jonathan, and finally to cap it all as the chairman of the People's Democratic Party until 2015. So I believe also he has the traditional title of Angaladima.
Angaladima Gwandu.
Gwandu. Yeah, welcome, sir, to the program.
Thank you.
And we normally start with asking about your background.
Well, my background is a little haphazard because I started as a veterinary surgeon and ended up as a politician. I was born in Birnin Kebbi, now in Kebbi Street. My family is from the Abdullahi Fodio family. My grandfather, Saadu Ubanduma, was the son of Emir of Bello Haliru and uncle to Emir of Bello Haruna, and sort of grandfather or grand uncle to the current Emir. My maternal grandfather was the Magajin Rafi, who was a member of the House of Representatives during the First Republic. I grew up in his house, so he is one of the people who most influenced my upbringing. He sent me to school and encouraged me to do well in school. After my primary school in Birnin Kebbi, and I went to the I went to the Sokoto Provincial Secondary School, where I took my WASC and came out with the Division 1, I'm happy to say.
Yeah.
And then I went to the Barrier College for the higher school certificate, because at that time, you don't go directly to the university. You first go and do either A-levels or HSC. And I passed through HSC to Ahmadu Bello University, where I read veterinary medicine. In the process of reading veterinary medicine, I became the president of the Students' Union at ABU. That was in 1970-71. After my stint at ABU, I was recruited as a lecturer in the same department in the Faculty of Veterinary Medicine. And then I was sent by the ABU to the University of Minnesota, where I read veterinary public health. And I came back and had a short stint of teaching before the then governor of Sokoto State, Colonel Haliru Mohammed, invited me to assist in the administration of our state. And I agreed and went to join his government with the intention of coming back to the Ahmadu Bello University. Well, unfortunately, fate intervened, and immediately after being the Commissioner of Agriculture and then Commissioner of Education, I was enticed by my emirate, Gwandu Emirate, to run for the post of Deputy Governor under the great GNPP.
Great Nigeria People's Party.
Great Nigeria People's Party, thank you. And then...
So you made the transition to politics.
I made a transition to politics, thinking it would be temporary,
yeah,
but it never happened. Every time a new dispensation comes up, the people kept coming back to me that I have to come and join them.
What influenced your choice to read veterinary medicine?
Well, one thing, you know, going to Emirate and then Sokoto State was one of the major livestock holding areas in Nigeria. And being a Fulani, I'm naturally attracted to cattle. And besides that, what really influenced me were two great men. When I was young in junior primary school, Dr. Bukar Shoaib was the chief veterinary officer in Birnin Kebbi. There is a settlement called Bulasa, which was a livestock breeding center. And Dr. Bukar Shoaib was there. So we used to admire him when he comes driving in his Jeep with his beautiful wife. They come to the market. And my grandfather's house where I grew up was just facing the market. So anytime Dr. Bukar Shoaib comes, I will follow him through the market. And
did he know you, or you just follow him?
I just follow him. I just admire him. He's a doctor and all that. Then later in life, one of my uncles became a livestock superintendent. And that one too encouraged me to like or love what I see the veterinarians doing, especially going around to inoculate cows in the bush, on horseback and things. I watch all these things, and that's what interested me in doing veterinary medicine. You
are a student leader, I mean, president of the Student Union, as you said, in 1971. I mean, would you say this is the beginning of politics for you, or is it just something that was still limited to?
I think at that time I wasn't thinking of politics. It was still under military government. It was during Gawan's time.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of student politics. Why will you, very busy veterinary,
I agree,
student, veer into contesting for president of Student Union?
Well, it's just the interest. I think I have always had that innate interest in politics because my grandfather, whom I grew up under, was a member of parliament in northern Nigeria. And I read a lot of the Hansards and the documents he brings back from Kaduna. So maybe that's the beginning of my getting interested in politics.
Tell us about your stay in the U.S. It was very rare then for people from our part of the world to travel all the way to I mean, how long was it and how was the experience?
About 2 years. It was a very good experience. I'm lucky to go to Minnesota, and at that time there was no racism in Minnesota because they were not having large number of black population. So we had a very good stay, me and my wife, because we had classmates who were mostly U.S. Army officers. They use veterinary training so they can send them to be in charge of the food hygiene in the various military formations all over the world. But a few of us were civilians, maybe 1 or 2 from Nigeria. I know one from Indonesia, and a couple of others from Latin America. But all the American students were military veterinary officers. And we had a lot of social interaction, inviting each other to our homes and having parties. And even some of our lecturers, you know, Americans are very liberal, invite us to their homes. And some have lakes behind their houses, and we go boating and things like that. In all, I think it was a very good experience, and it broadened my outlook.
And I assume you are on kind of full scholarship.
I was on ABU scholarship.
Comfortable.
Yes, I was fairly comfortable, and the relationship with all the people were good, and I used that opportunity to tour a number of the states. I was in California, I went to Texas to attend some American Veterinary Society conferences, American Food Hygiene Association, of which I became a member before I left. And I'm still a member, but you know, it's not easy to go to the US for conferences and meetings.
Even for someone like you?
I have not been chance to go to their meetings since I came back.
Since you came back in the 70s?
Yes.
Yeah, but I assume as minister in Beirut, you had chance to travel to the
As Director of Custom, I
too.
visited the United States. But then it is a different thing because I was there with the Customs Director of the United States.
Yeah.
I toured some of their ports and their formations, but I wouldn't have time to attend to veterinary work.
Yeah, but I still want to take you back to ABU. I believe the expectation would be then, now when you come back from your study abroad, you will stay and teach.
Yes.
But apparently you didn't do that.
That was the agreement.
That upset ABU?
But that time, it was beginning of military government. So all institutions were flexible in terms of their staff being called to assist in the governance. So when I got that invitation, I reported to ABU, and it didn't raise any issues. I got approval immediately.
How did the invitation come?
Well, it's a funny way, really, because this is somebody I never met. I came back from the US, and I know one of my classmates, Lawali Bungudu, was the commissioner, he was the head of OFN, Operation Feed the Nation, if you remember that.
Yes.
Okay, he was the head of OFN in Sokoto. And so I said, okay, let me branch and see him, because I was out of the country when he got his appointment. So I went to the State Secretariat, where the Ministry of Agriculture was situated, where his office was. We met, and he was happy to see me, of course, and I was happy to see him. Then he was called on telephone while I was sitting before him, and it was the governor who wanted to see him. I said, I'm going to see the governor. Why don't you come and greet him? I said, well, no problem. I'm from Sokoto, and I've just come from study leave. So I went to the government house with him. We met with the governor. He was impressed that somebody from Sokoto with a postgraduate qualification in veterinary medicine, because at that time the chief veterinary officer for the state was an Egyptian.
Okay.
I was the first veterinary surgeon from Sokoto State. So we had a good discussion, and then I left. So not long after that, my friend Lawali Bungudu came to Zaria. He too was a lecturer there.
Okay, before?
Before. Yeah. We started lecturing together.
He was a vet also?
No, he's an agriculture officer. Okay. We started lecturing together, but then I went to the US. So he came to my house and said, the governor wants to see me. I said, what does he want to see me for? I saw him just a few weeks ago. So, well, he asked me to come myself and bring you so he can talk to you. I said, okay, go and tell him I'm coming tomorrow. Because at that time, I thought I should at least prepare myself and...
maybe you guessed what was the call?
I never guessed what it was. What if I thought of anything, it was that maybe he wanted me to come and be the chief veterinary officer. So the following morning, I drove to Sokoto and went to the Bungudu's house. And then he took me to the government house. And we had some more discussions about the country and about development in Sokoto State. And he asked me, if I ask you to come and help me with all these development things you are talking about, would you like to come? I said, why not? I went to university on Sokoto State scholarship. So it's my duty to come and assist in any way you want me to assist. We parted at that. The following day, I went back to Zaria and resumed my duty. A few days later, Bungudu came again. The governor wants to see me. Again. This time I started suspecting whether maybe there is something else. So I went with him and went to see the governor, and he said, if I make you the Commissioner of Agriculture, since you are a vet, will you accept?
That time his cabinet was not in place?
It was in place.
Okay.
What happened is somebody from Gwandu, my emirate, resigned. And that is Haliru Gwandu. He was an agricultural officer. At one time, in fact, he was head of agriculture in Gwandu Emirates. That time there were NAs, native authorities. So after he resigned to join the Nigerian Tobacco Company as an agric officer, that's when I got this invitation. So I accepted. If it is something to serve the state, I'm ready.
I wonder, I mean, as a young person in your early 30s, then being thrust into this public or political sphere back in your home state, how did you cope?
Well, I think I did fairly well because after some time as Commissioner for Agriculture, I was promoted, so to say, to Commissioner of Education, which is a bigger ministry. So that is why I thought maybe I was doing well. Otherwise, it wouldn't be.
Yeah. What were the challenges? I mean, people coming to you, maybe looking for contracts.
That time things were not so bad.
I see.
That time things were not so bad. There was sanity in government. At a later stage, I was even chairman of the State Tenders Board. But I was never harassed by anybody looking for contract. And you also remember, I had just come back from the United States. I just left university, went to the United States and came back. So I didn't know many people. But even the ones I know, that time contractors were contractors, civil servants were civil servants, traditional rulers were traditional rulers, not like now when everybody is a contractor. So there wasn't really much pressure. We know who are the main contractors in the state, and that time, to get a contract, you had to make a bid and be evaluated. And we had technical people that time, most of them were foreigners, so they didn't have any favorites. So I would say it was a good opportunity for me as a young man, and with the atmosphere as it was, everything was professional. And we had very good time. I had a very close relationship with Umar Mohammed. Unfortunately, he died in a plane crash. You remember?
After being commissioner, as you said, in 2 ministries, agriculture, education. At the end of that period, when civilian rule came back, you attempted to be deputy governor?
Yes.
Why? Why didn't you go back to the university?
Well, you see, my plan was to go back to the university. The people from my emirate again came and solicited that I should come and join the MPN so I can run for deputy governor. I declined. Yes.
When we hear people say, my people came and asked me to contest, we normally, at least we journalists, we say, does this really happen?
I had no notion of contesting anything. For one thing, when they first came, I told them I didn't.
Who are they?
Members of the GMPP, mostly business community. At that time, when Waziri formed the GMPP, Waziri Ibrahim, he mostly interacted with businessmen. Wherever he goes, he will pick the top businessmen and ask them to be the leaders of the GMPP.
Right.
But you know, in the usual way, most of our businessmen are not educated. So they were looking for somebody with some education to be the candidate. So when they came for MPN,
Yes.
the first group came, I declined. I told them I was not 35 years then. The cutoff limit for governor at that time was 35 years. I told them I was not 35 years.
Up to that point, you were not 35.
Up to that point, I was not 35 years. And they left disappointed, of course. Even then, when MPN was meeting to select a candidate, somebody threw my name in. But of course, I was not a member of the party. I was still a commissioner. So Garba Nadama was elected with Shehu Kangiwa, and they were the candidates. Then much later, some of our elders, the commissioners were kind of part of the leadership of our emirate at that time.
Yes.
So they came to me and said, well, this MPN, they formed their team. Sokoto is the biggest emirate. So we agree if they take the governor, Gwandu being the second emirate will take the deputy governor, which stands to reason. But they have ignored us completely and took everything. Sokoto and Argungu took governor, and then Sokoto took deputy governor. And Gwandu is left in the open. So one thing, I was not a civil servant. The other one is I was the commissioner from that area. So they asked me to do something about it. So I went to see the then leaders of the MPN. And they both told me that I was too late. They had already finished their arrangement. So that kind of annoyed me. So I came and told our elder people like Male Idris Koko, Hanafisa, people who are permanent secretary and directors in the various ministries. I put them together and said, well, these people have snapped us, so let's find the alternative. So we went to the leaders of the GMPP. That's why GMPP was very strong in Sokoto State, even though we lost election due to hanky-panky.
Who was the governor candidate? Governorship candidate?
For
GMPP?
For GMPP, Muhammad Anka.
Muhammad Anka.
Muhammad Zaid Anka, he was then permanent secretary.
So you contested with him?
We contested with him, yes. So the GMPP leadership agreed, okay, we'll take deputy governor from Gwandu, we'll take governor from Sokoto. They agreed.
And of course, you lost the election, but still I'm interested to know, how was the hali-bali of politics for you, an academician, somebody who is a professional?
Well, it was really a new eye-opener. The backstabbing and the deceit. Because if you remember, the chairman of GMPP at that time was Sarkin Kudu, the son of the Sultan, the late Sultan Machido. He was the leader. But when he saw that all the big men, Ibrahim Gusau, Ibrahim Dasuki, Shehu Malami were all in MPN, and he became...
Shagari, of course.
And Shagari. And he became apprehensive and went to his father, who was then supporting the GMPP, and advised him.
His father was the Sultan.
And that the Suki, you know, at that time there was a very bitter rivalry between the Suki, Machedo, and Shehu Malami on who would succeed Sultan Abu Bakr. So when he saw that the other two are all in the same party with all the big shots, he became apprehensive. So he went to his father and they changed their mind. And Sakyam Kudu overnight, without even consulting any of us, switched
to MPN.
To MPN. And that switched all the district heads and the village heads under the Sultan. Before, in almost every district, the GMPP was the reigning party, but after that switch, everybody switched. That is how we lost the election.
Yeah. But was it personally inconvenient to you moving around, all the issue of money and campaign?
Well, actually, at that time, there was no money politics. Waziri will bring 20,000.
Waziri Ibrahim.
Waziri Ibrahim. Of course, he bought some vehicles and motorcycles for the organizing secretaries who would go from one place to another. But after that, it's not like now when you want to do a rally, you have to send millions and buses have to be hired for people to come. That time, when we went to hold a rally, everybody comes on his own. And when we visit any town, it is the leaders of GMPP in that town who will collect money and buy us entertainment. Where we have a rich man, he may make some food. Where they don't have any big man, they will buy maybe a bunch of bananas or a bucket of mangoes and some water. At that time, bottled water was not so common. So everybody drinks from the well. So that is how we did our campaign. It didn't cost me a kobo.
After that attempt to be deputy governor, which of course didn't happen, you were rewarded with a number of appointments.
No, I was not rewarded.
Okay, you were given. I don't know. Okay.
After contesting,
yes,
I spent the whole of Shagari's first term.
Right.
Trying to put ends together.
So then you are excluded because you are in the wrong party.
Of course, yes. We form a company with the gubernatorial candidate Muhammad Anka.
Right.
We call it Alpha and Beta.
Right.
That is Anka and Bello.
Okay.
And we are trying to trade. Of course, you know, he being a former civil servant and me being an academician, and we don't know anything about business.
Yes.
So
you didn't want to go back to ABU.
Well, that time it was too late. I had already lost my position.
Right.
Because after being commissioner, right, which was condoned, I should have gone back.
Yes.
But as I went into politics now,
yes,
I had to resign.
Right.
Because you can't be a public officer and
yes,
that politics in that time because it was a military regime.
Right.
So I had to resign and I couldn't go back.
Right.
We tried to get ends to meet.
Right. In
of
Sokoto.
Course, in Sokoto.
Right.
We were even traveling to Maiduguri where we have GMPP government.
Okay.
To Gongola then.
Okay.
And the governors were trying to help us, but
right,
we didn't know anything about business.
Right.
So it was not a success. Eventually, I was then secretary of the GMPP in Sokoto State.
Right.
And that time I was more vocal than I am now.
Right.
And I was really giving them a tough time.
Right.
And Shagari was not comfortable with that at all.
Right.
So he sent people to talk to us that we should come and he would give us a job.
Right.
I didn't want to take it. Muhammad Anka went and was sent to MPA.
Nigerian Port Authority.
Yeah, as one of the directors. But me, I was told that Bello Kirfi, who was the Minister of State Foreign Affairs, was looking for me because he didn't know me. He was looking for me that I have been given the appointment as ambassador to Argentina. So I didn't want it. Because I know they wanted to take me out of my people and send me away so I will not be a nuisance to them. So after they stopped pressurizing, I continued as a GMPP stalwart. I was at one time a national secretary. But then, before the next election, Mala Adamu Chiroma, who is somebody that I admired over a long time, because I used to go to Mahmoud Tukur's house because he was marrying one of my cousins. So I used to meet Adam Chiroma there, and then I started going to Adam Chiroma's house. And he called me and said, look, you are a professional, you are wasting your time. Why don't you come and go back to your veterinary work?
He was then a minister himself, right?
No.
Chiroma.
Yeah, he was a minister of agriculture.
Under Shagari.
I didn't agree then, but then Bukar Shuaib was made national security advisor to Shagari. And if you remember, Bukar Shuaib, he was the vet who was in Benin Kebi, and whom I used to admire.
Yes.
So when he was given the appointment, I went to the Dodon Barracks that time to see him. I just went to greet him because in the process, of course, we became acquainted, and it's somebody I already knew and admired. So when we became acquainted, I was visiting him. He was even visiting me. He visited me in Sokoto, my house, I remember. So when I went to see him, he repeated the same thing that Adam Chiroma said. You see, as I'm here, I'm not a politician. Only Shagari, because he's my friend, asked me to come and assist him. That's why I'm here. But we professionals are not cut to be politicians. It's better you go back to your veterinary work. So I took his advice and said, then where do I start? He said, go to Malam Adam Chiroma. He's the Minister of Agriculture. He must find a place to fix you. So I went to see Adam Chiroma, and he already had this idea that I should stop wasting my time. So he gave me a letter to Professor Shehu Bida, who was then the managing director of the National Livestock Production, and they are the owners of Moka Ranch. Shehu was my lecturer in ABU, and he's somebody who was close to me as a lecturer because I was good in his subject, which was pathology. So when he became lecturer in ABU, I was still student. I was visiting him in his house because we became close from the classroom. So when I went to see him from Malam Adam Chiroma with a letter, he said, well, they have a position of assistant general manager, but he couldn't do anything about it. I have to wait for the board. So I said, okay, I will wait for the board. He said, we'll have a board meeting tomorrow, so if you stay around, when the chairman comes, I will introduce you and give him your letter. Lo and behold, when the chairman came, he was my grand uncle, Maaz Lamido. We already knew each other, and you know, as a kind of grandfather, because in the hierarchy of Sokoto and Gwandu, he failed the same level with my grandfather. So as the two families were together, anybody who is a father is now father on the other side also. So he was my grandfather. I knew him very well, because of my grandfather, the Magajin Rabi, who was a member of parliament. Immediately he came and said, Dogo. I said, Rankeredi. So the MD was surprised, the managing director. I said, so you know him? He said, this one is my grandson. So there was no difficulty in me getting a job there. And I didn't go to Mokwa. I stayed in Kaduna as a deputy general manager because they had two assistant general managers and they didn't have deputy managing director. So seeing that I'm a veterinarian, he wanted me to be the one to succeed him. So he proposed to the chairman that they should create a post of deputy general manager so I can fit in. And I was recruited. And then Bukar Shuaib, who advised me to come to them, was now, after another coup, was now the Minister of Agriculture.
After Shagari was removed? After
Shagari was removed. He left from NSA to now become the Minister of Agriculture under a military government. So one day he came to Kaduna, and one of the places he visited was our livestock company. So he saw me there. I think he forgot that he advised me to come there. He was surprised to see me there. Fortunately, at that time, the general manager of Sokoto Rima Basin Authority, because he...
So this was under Buhari's government then?
Well, Buhari's government was just coming in, yes.
Yes, it just came in, yes.
Yeah, so the then general manager of Sokoto Rima Basin Authority, Muhammad Arzika, was the in-law of Shagari. So out of anger that his in-law was removed, he too resigned from the job. So Bukar Shai was at a dilemma who to send there. So he came and met me at the, he said, I'm surprised you are here. Then after the meeting with the management, he said he wants to see me separately. And he told me Arzika wants to go, and I would like to send you to Sokoto. You will go and be the assistant general manager and relieve him when he is gone. I agreed. Here I was deputy general manager. Now I'm going back to assistant general manager. But then I knew there is a future plan. Yeah. So when Arzika left, I became the general manager of Sokoto Rima. And that time, baccalaureate project was commissioned by, I think it was Obasanjo who commissioned it.
So things were very busy.
Yes.
Things were happening.
And there was a lot of production. That time, rice production in that place was more than anywhere else in Nigeria. And then in addition to rice, during the dry season, they produced potatoes. If you see the number of vehicles coming from the south to load tomatoes and potatoes, it is really a pity they allowed that project to die down.
But why did it die down? You have been in the leadership all these years, so you must have an insight. Why did we fail to sustain even agriculture?
Simply because the government was not interested enough to fund the project. You know, at the beginning, we had a Gusau Agricultural Development Project financed by the FAO. And when FAO had I think it was a 4 years or 6 year project time, the intention was the state government will then take over and continue the project after it is established by the FAO. But when the FAO left, the state government was not interested enough to fund the project properly. By that time, I had left.
Tell us about this big switch, as I may call it, you made to being the Comptroller General of Customs under Babangida. How did that happen?
Well, I was General Manager of Sokoto Rima. Then Babangida appointed NASCO as minister. Of course, you know, they are friends, classmates. So General NASCO, when Babangida wanted, he was a bit unhappy with the custom at that time. He said he was not going to appoint anybody from the custom. That time, Atiku was the #1, Abubakar Atiku, Waziri Adama, he was the #1 candidate. Everybody expected he would be the one to take over. But Babangida didn't want to put a professional custom officer. He wanted a reform. So he was searching for somebody of high integrity to appoint. Then his friend, General Nasco, who knew me, if you remember, I was his commissioner.
Nasco was a minister then under Babangida?
He was a minister then of agriculture.
Agriculture, okay.
Before he came to FCT. So he told Babangida, well, I know somebody in Sokoto. I worked with him, but the problem is you can't control him. Babangida said, well, that's the kind of person we are looking for. Because the reason why Nasco said I could not be controlled, There was a time I was chairman of State Tenders Board, and we awarded a contract to a Kano company to build the State Assembly complex. Somebody from Lagos sent a northern contractor, and the man was so arrogant. He said, well, because he was so sure, you know, having come from Lagos, he said, well, if you don't remove this and don't remove that, he will not do the job. I said, okay. So we awarded the contract to somebody else. Then, you know, the contract has to go to Executive Council for approval. When we went to Executive Council for approval, administrator was in a dilemma. This is one of his bosses in Lagos have sent this man. And now the tenders board said they will not give him the job.
So you got the job?
So I got the job.
Was it difficult being the chief of customs?
It was not difficult for me at all.
You did it for 6 years?
I did it for 6 years. And we raised the revenue from millions into billions. For the first time, custom collected billion naira. And everybody was surprised.
How did Atiku feel? You met him there, you were supposed to
Well, actually, he did his best to cooperate with us. And all the other deputies, including Mr. Afanga, who was acting when
so he was your deputy, Atiku
Atiku was my deputy.
Yes.
And Mr. Afanga, who was the acting director of custom then. But I think Atiku was not so happy with the situation because everybody expected him to be the director. And there were some issues between him and some of his statesmen from Adama who were in the Supreme Military Council. And that's why he didn't get the job.
You were minister under Obasanjo and Jonathan.
Yes.
How do you compare these two leaders serving under them?
Well, they are two different people.
So you would say Obasanjo, the key thing about him is this decisiveness.
Decisiveness.
What of Jonathan?
Well, Jonathan, honestly, was a very good person. But he didn't have that push, that decisiveness that I saw with Obasanjo. Jonathan was a gentleman. If you tell him something is not possible, he will not pressurize you. And if you remember, he was even saying his election is not worth a single drop of blood of Nigerians.
But did he mean it? Politicians make such statements. But
he meant it. That's why he lost the election. If he had gone out with the presidential power, with police and army and everything to win that election, nothing would stop him. But he didn't.
Why did he insist on contesting in 2011? You were party chairman then.
Yes.
And you supported him. People say that was the beginning of our problem.
That was.
But
the governors, mostly governors from the north, Saraki and all the others in PDP, they didn't want him to contest. But his people, his immediate circle, were encouraging him that he must contest.
The U.S. party chair supported him.
No, let me tell you what happened. I was in the UK when the governors now said if Jonathan were to contest, he would have to do one term. And they will write an agreement. So they drafted an agreement. There was actually an agreement drafted. Then my secretary then, Abubakar Baraji, called me when I was in UK and told me, this is what is happening. We are now in the office. The governors are saying Jonathan must sign an agreement. But two of the governors are begging him that let us do it by gentleman's agreement. It will be humiliating to ask our president to sign an undertaking. So I said, well, what do you see? He said, well, I think at that time, his boss, his former boss, Bukola, was one of the governors who wanted us to just take a gentleman's agreement with Jonathan. So he encouraged me that we should agree with that. So I said, okay, if those of you in the NWC agree, and the governors also agree, let us give him the chance. So that is the extent of my support.
Yeah.
But then when the election was approaching,
in this long career of yours, you have, there have been issues that have come up about, you mention your integrity, but I want you to address this issue that have come out, EEFCC probes and all that.
At that time, Siemens in particular, and the other one, I think, which one? I think they are from Sweden. Ericsson, I think, yeah. Ericsson. They were our main contractors. And election was coming. So the party was soliciting for campaign contribution from major contractors. And Siemens was contacted. They gave contribution. I wouldn't want to say to whom they gave it to, but they didn't give it to me. So
but you were the party chair.
I was the party chair. So in their record, they put that they gave it to me as party chairman. But actually, it went into somebody's account. I know whose account it went into. But when the matter came up, I didn't want to say it is this one or that one. Because my ethics is, if you ask me to do something, if I don't want to do it, I will not do it. I tell you I don't want to do it. But if I accept to do it, then I take responsibility. So the matter came up in the press, and there was a lot of brouhaha, and I was invited by the FCC. I told them I didn't accept any money from Siemens. If somebody accepted it on my behalf, I would want to see him. If somebody says he give me hand to hand, I would want to see him. The FCC never confronted me with anybody to say this is the person who gave you money or this is the person who collected it in your name. But I knew what happened. So I took responsibility, and the matter fizzled out because the people in power then knew who took the money. And since I was determined enough not to expose them, I took the blame alone. Because if I had said this is the person who was involved, this is the person who was involved, it will be a bigger scandal. So I decided to take the can.
But you didn't feel personally that it has compromised you with the public?
Well, it's part of responsibility. If you accept a job, anything that happens, I'm responsible. The same thing happened in custom. Anything that happened, I took responsibility. How would it look like as a gentleman like me to say that I didn't have my own mind? It is somebody who asked me to do so and so. It would be ridiculous, I thought. It's better to face the public. Yes, this thing has happened, but you go to FCC, you will find the record that nobody gave me anything.
Have you now retired from politics altogether?
No, I have not retired.
Are you still active in PDP? Are you in the board of trustees?
I'm still a member of the board of trustees of the PDP.
But you are not, we don't hear you now. What do you do? Are you sort of...
Well, after the setback I got, I had a stroke, you know. So I'm still in the process of recovering. But even then, I was attending meetings. I'm the leader of the Elders Forum in Kebbi State. So So I would say I'm still active in politics. You know, in politics, you can never retire. Because even if you retire, the people that you brought into the politics and the people you are leading, they rely on you. When there is problem, they always come to you. So how would you say, I'm the one who invited you to the party, or I'm the one who was leading you for the last several years, but now that you are in trouble, I don't want to know about it.
What do you feel about the current happenings in the country since the new APC government took over?
APC has been a disaster to this country, starting from Buhari. They came with a fake integrity, saying that Buhari is a man of integrity, that sai mai gaskiya. Unfortunately, when he became the president, that dynamism that we saw when he was military president was all due to Tunde Idiabo. It was not from him, because he was leading from behind. Tunde was the one who was leading to the front. So when he came without Tunde, there was nobody to push him or nobody to take the decision. And you could see Buhari couldn't take any decision. In fact, people were saying he didn't know what was happening. He was just there, and some people, the cabal, as his wife said, the cabal was taking the country for a ride. There has never been so much corruption in this country as we saw during Buhari regime. People who were nobody overnight became billionaires. And then, of course, Tinubu had already announced that he will continue where Buhari stopped. So when he came in, it even got worse.
How do you characterize the last 15 months of his own period, the Tinubu period?
Well, it is a disaster continuance of what Buhari was doing. But his own is even worse, because he had a legal cabal that surrounded him. If you notice, most of the people in government in high places, especially finance-related positions, are people who are from his cabinet in Lagos. So it has become an internal affair for them to decide where the economy goes and to decide who gets what.
But do you think PDP can recover? I mean, now that he's in and in charge, and PDP and other parties are divided.
Of course. Nobody expected PDP to recover after Buhari's second term. But after Jonathan's defeat, we came back and were able to contest vigorously against Buhari's second term and against Tinubu's election. So the same people, the same strategies that revived the PDP after Jonathan's defeat is still at work. And we will see what happens in 2027.
Tell us about Dr. Bello, the private man, your family life.
Well, I have a wife, and I had 6 children. One of them, the eldest male child, of course, died not long ago. You know about it.
Yeah.
And we are still managing the grief. It's not something you can forget. But we are recouping our life and starting to forget the... What I mean is the grief is not as deep as it was at the beginning. You know, with time, everything passes. Otherwise, I'm now a private man. My children have grown up. The second male child has taken over from where Abba stopped. He is running an estate business. The third child is now a member of National Assembly. And my female children, some are married and some are working. I have one doctor and one administrator, and they are both working. I have one daughter who has married, but she's still not in a permanent job. She's working with some, what do you call it, non-government organizations. I would say I have a stable family, a fairly happy family, and we have an extended family. You know, our Abdullahi Fodio family is very large, and there's a lot of responsibility for those of us who have come out and made some good of our life to support and get all the rest of the family at least fairly comfortable. So we have a very large family. Even within my father's compound, there are about 12 of us. So that is a lot of responsibility for me. And having been a public figure, there is a lot of demand from the general public. Like, you know, the politics now is not like when we started. Now, politicians think if you are a leader, you owe them everything. If they have marriage ceremony, you have to give them money. If they have naming ceremony, you have to give them money. In this time of scarcity, they all depend that politicians have to give them money. So we are doing as much as we can. And I believe with God's help, everything will be okay.
Thank you, Dr. Bello Haliru Mohammed, for giving us this insight into your life. And
it's my pleasure.
Wish you well. And viewers, thank you for joining us in this conversation. Until another time,